Hello everyone, good morning, good afternoon. Today we'll go through about some of the basic Spring Boot interview question and answer because nowadays Spring Boot is most used framework and all the interviews will have the questions on this architecture and as well as your microservice architecture and Spring Boot working conditions and everything. So today I'll just cover the one of the basic and few of the important topics in the Spring Boot as a interview questions and answers. Let us move on. First and foremost question is arises like what is Spring Boot and what are its advantages. So as you all aware of the Spring MVC and everything, so Spring Boot isn't just an extension of that Spring framework altogether. It's a Java based web framework and it helps to create you the standalone production ready application because in Spring MVC and other Spring modules, look, you have to create the whole configuration by yourself and configure to the external services like Tomcat or JBoss with all the configuration. But Spring Boot just provides you everything built in so that you can directly deploy that application to any of the systems. So it's a rapid application development framework so that you have everything inbuilt which is required, basic required for your development and a deployment as well, so you can directly deploy. So it's an extension of a Spring framework by eliminating the all manual setup configuration. As I said, it's rapid development framework makes all configuration available by default like config, embedded servers and everything, and overall it helps a faster way of deploying the application. So user or as a developer no need to spend a time on boilerplate code like configuring the XML, configuring those values, configuring all your servers and everything. It allows you to concentrate on your business logic rather than the application configuration itself. So that's why it is called as the one of the advanced framework and one of the most used framework in the current market. Let us see the next one. So now how it is a rapid development framework, what all the things comes as a by default here. So now you see the question will be on what are the different embedded server it supports and how to configure it. So Spring Boot comes with a Tomcat, Jetty and Undertow configuration, and by default it is a Tomcat. It is embedded into there with their web dependency, but you can configure Jetty and Undertow as per your requirement. So to have that configured right, you just need to exclude Tomcat explicitly if you want to use something else. So currently I'm just an example here to how to exclude a Tomcat from your dependency and how to include a Jetty from your dependency. So you can just see I just removed the Tomcat dependency here through the exclude and exclusion options from the dependency from your POM, and to include just you have to add a Spring Boot starter Jetty. So it just takes the Jetty as your server and removes the Tomcat from the default one. So this is a basic one and this is very important as well, so you can configure a different one as you required. Move to the next one. So this is very important. So what are the different Spring Boot profiles you can see profiles is one of the concept where I have made a different video as well. I'll comment those videos as well in the description section. So now in normal or in traditional web application development, what we do, like you have a configuration properties created for a dev and you make those changes and again deploy into QA and make those changes again deploy into the production because all the configurations will be different. But here it provides the facility like you can have a create a multiple YMLs or a properties file where you can define all those properties, but while you are deploying only you can tell for the particular bean or maybe the particular deployment system that you can pick up from the particular environment, particular profile. So if you want to pick up only for a dev, you can just mention as a dev, you can mention as a QA and prod. So you can use add profile as well for a specific bean to read a specific properties. And let me show you the proper example here in this. So if you see it here, you can see there's a application.yml properties. See, if this application.yml properties I configured for the dev, so my application is, for example, is a dev. So now if I want to deploy into QA, what I'll do, I'll just create a one more YML file application underscore QA and mention all the QA properties and everything. And in IntelliJ also in local development you can do that. You can just in the run configuration, you can just go here and edit in the run configuration. You can mention it here, like how you want to deploy, which one to pick it up for that, right? You can just mention like Spring Boot this profiles as a dev, whatever. It's a your configuration how you want to configure it. So you can just mention which of the properties file it needs to pick, so that we can have n number of YML files. So based on that, it will be picked up there. So this is one of the important as well, and it is easy as well for a configuration perspective, so that you can have that information, or no need to configure for separately for each deployment. You just have to mention your profile which is selected for that. Okay, let us move on the next one. What is Spring Boot actuators? Spring by default provides you the monitoring or managing application endpoints. Like, you don't need to configure especially. This is also one of the point where you can call as a why it is a rapid application development framework, because it provides everything by default, or most of the things by default, to manage or monitor application, like your health info, environment, cache, condition loggers. There are a lot of n number of there. You can just hit the /actuator endpoint, so where you can see all the information by default for the any Spring application. So how do you add that? So you can see there is a management endpoints where you can expose a .include .star means it will expose everything, so that you can just add this starter actuator dependency in your application, so it will manage everything. So if you want to exclude some of them, like a JMX and everything, you can just put as a exclude and put those particular, or you can include only few of them which is required, like health info, like that. So it's based on your convenience, but Spring provides you everything by default, so that you can just use those to manage and monitor your applications. Now, this is also most of them ask this question, like what is the starter dependency? See, starter dependency is as I called earlier, Spring provides you the most of the things by default as a configurations or dependencies. So starter parent dependencies are like you can have a specific master dependency, like I want to use a JPA. Okay, I want to use a JPA for database connections, everything. You just need to add a starter JPA dependency over there. So Spring will automatically manage everything. So Spring will automatically identify that your database, what it is, how we are using a JPA and everything. So it has a lot of starter dependencies, like Spring Boot starter web dependency. So web dependency automatically by default, it has like a embedded server as a Tomcat, and it has other security things, and you have a actuator one starter dependency, it has all those things. So a starter dependency is like a kind of a parent dependency of that particular feature which you want to use. Like here you can see starter data JPA. So there is a data management with the JPA, a starter ActiveMQ. So if you can see starter the batch processing as well, you can say starter email, so it will support the email functionality. So if you look at the code, let me see you how I can, yeah. So if you see there's a code here, I can see it's easily that starter MongoDB I can using, because I am telling the Spring that I am using a MongoDB as my database connection. So all the connections will be automated automatically by the Spring framework, so that I can directly use a MongoDB as a data connection and a data storage for that. So Spring provides us the configuration. We just need to embed or include that dependency and start using it. So there is no need to spend time on other things which you used to do with the MVC and other things, but now it is not required. That is the advantage of that as well. Now let us see the next one. So now you can configure the different logging perspective, like how to configure logging in Spring Boot. There are different types of logging. You can do a file logging, you can do a XML logging as well, or you can do a log to external system as well, or you can just log in the console as well. So in the application properties file, you can just mention the log level, like what is the log level you want to have it, and what is your class path, or maybe the package structure as well. You can do. So I made a different video for logging as well. I'll comment it down in the description, so you can just look at it, how the logging and everything is configured over there. So that is the information what we have for the logging. So you can just, it's a very straightforward, and how to use it I explained detailed in my another video. I'll paste the link of that video as well. So now, can a Spring Boot use for a development or non-web application or standalone application? This is very important tricky questions. As a developer, you always tend to use a Spring as a web application, Spring as a microservice application, or Spring as a enterprise application. But the main point here is, like, can we use it as a normal application without a web application or without a linking it to any of the servers or something like that? Yes, absolutely yes. We can use it as a non-web application development. You just need to implement a command line interface interface and override a run method so that it will work as a standalone application. Okay, so this is very important question as well, or little tricky question, because nobody has thought about this using like this, because it's generally we try to use all the facility which a Flink provides, like a microservice other, but we can use as a non-web application as well. And the another question arises here, or the questionnaire might ask, like, can we use external systems or external web servers for the Spring instead of what is coming by default? Absolutely yes. You can use external systems as well. Before we used to have a JBoss and everything, you can use that. You can just mention in the web application properties that a web server is as a none. I'll explain you in that next video with a more detailed information. Okay, you can just disable your inbuilt web server and you can use external whatever it is required for that. Yeah, now you can see how can you change the Spring Boot app port. It's a quite simple and straightforward. If you look at your application.yml and the port, it will be mentioned there, port and the context path. You can just go over there and change that from there. It's straightforward. Now, how to disable auto configurations? So now the question comes, like, Spring comes up with lot of the auto configurations and everything inbuilt configurations. Now I want to disable that. So what you can do is, like, you can just use exclude as a annotations there, or enable an auto configuration as exclude as a parameter there, so that it will exclude whatever the configuration class you are created, right? Like data source auto configuration, like it is connecting with the database and other things. So we just excluded it. So you need not to have that while booting itself. So it will not consider that. So you can have that information excluded from your class itself. Now, using a property file also, you can exclude, like spring.autoconfigure.exclude. You can mention your class name, whichever you want to exclude, and everything. So these are the basic and the most important questions. As a start, I have explained this to you, but in the next videos I'll come up with a more detailed or maybe more technical questions with respect to the or tricky questions, I would say, with examples as well. So but when we are going for an interview, these are the basic questions at least you should be aware of conceptually and configuration wise as well. So I'll come up with the next set of question and answers in the next video. I'll be adding some of my earlier videos links as well in the comments, so please look at it. Thank you. Thanks a lot.